For the debate, the member for Huron-Bruce.
Much, Speaker, and I am very pleased to stand and speak today in support of my colleagues' Bill 27, Provincial Framework and Action Plan concerning Vector-Borne and Zoonotic Disease Act 2014. I've been standing since 2011, Speaker, reading petitions and sharing stories from people in my riding who will finally be saying today, finally. And I thank the member from Haldimand Norfolk for standing tall and doing what's right by the citizens in Ontario. I have so much information here, but I have to tell you that it would have been early in my first term, I met with a lady by the name of Doris. She's from Cranbrook, and she's just a phenomenal lady who has suffered with Lyme disease for years upon years. And just last week, during our Constit Week, I had the opportunity to hear the story from a gentleman by the name of Lynn, who was the first person in Huron County to be diagnosed with Lyme disease. But before I get into those stories, I too also congratulate the member from Haldimand Norfolk for recognizing the importance of looking at the big picture. You know, so much is at stake. And I think about the genuine concern about Ebola. You know, there's a program associated with the agri-food sector called the Advanced Agricultural Leadership Program. For the first time ever in decades, this particular organization was going to send their current class to Africa, but unfortunately that trip was cancelled because of the fear and concern over Ebola, and most importantly, how to diagnose and treat it. So I can congratulate our member for recognizing the importance of looking at the big picture. I also think about West Nile disease. I think I, in my family, must have the sweetest blood because I am the magnet for mosquitoes. And I can't help but express concern, you know, every day that we're out and about. And then when it comes back to Lyme, I think about the people who ask for permission to go hunting at the back of our farm in the bush when deer season rolls along. I think about the people who have met with me in my constituency office expressing concern. And I also think about the people who have done so much and incurred so much. Just this past week, on Tuesday, the member from Haldimand Norfolk held a media conference, and he had a brave individual sit beside him to share his story. And I was chatting with Will's wife, and knowing how this has rolled out, I said, how much have you had to spend to try and maintain a certain level of health for your husband? Speaker, they had gone into debt $40,000. It's not right. It needs to stop, and we need to start identifying opportunities to help these people instead of driving them to the States and driving them to Europe for treatment. I also want to recognize that this is not new, and finally, we're doing something about it today. In 2013, Better Farming, a publication that's known widely through rural Ontario, celebrated something. One of their journalists, Mary Baxter, wrote an article called Lyme Disease, the Painful and Hard to Diagnose Infection, and it actually was nominated and won Best Agricultural Story in the World. And I just want to recognize that the award was announced in Sweden, pardon me, where judges called Baxter's piece beautiful and said it used a nice mix of human interest storytelling and scientific research, exemplifying great journalism. That was back in 2011. But I can tell you, and if I could get the page to bring me another glass of water, I'd appreciate it. I can tell you people have suffered for so much longer. A brief snippet out of Lynn's diary. Feeling better, but will more than likely be back on a long road back to normal. Starting to feel someone is sitting on my chest. Guess doctors will figure this out, hopefully. And then sadly, he continues to write in his diary, had to retire earlier than I had wanted to. It's just not right. And then there's Deborah, who has quite a story. She contracted Lyme herself, but found she had passed it on to her 3 sons. And when I first met her a couple of years ago, her children were ages 5, 7, and 8. And our eyes just welled and our hearts broke when she spoke about her oldest child, Caleb, who had been struggling with his health since the age of 3. He had countless tests, and in the end, he ended up having to see a psychiatrist. That's where ultimately he was put on antipsychotic drugs because they were desperate. His brain was in a fog, he was unable to learn even basic academics, and he had regressed to a point of no longer being able to read and write. Deborah met with the school board, and they made a painful decision to send him 45 minutes, one bus ride each way, to a different classroom where he could get the emotional and behavioral support that he needed. Doris, a champion that pulls everyone together in support, has suffered long with Lyme disease. It broke my heart last week when she shared with me that there were times she would just want to die because people don't understand how Lyme disease affects an individual. And that's when Deborah said even her own son, now at the age of 11, would rather die than continue living this because they felt there was no hope. But now, due to the member from Halton and Norfolk and the support of the House today, we do have some hope. Thank you, Speaker.